Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Geico of Mobile, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Mathew, we got a great fishing report today, all made possible with the support of our local businesses. This week's sponsor is your local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? Give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premium possible, but you'll have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps bring you the fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. I'm Butch Theory, and this week I am excited to have Mathew Isbell, the Bama Beach Bum, co-host with me. How are we doing today, Mathew?
Man, I am doing so dadgum good right now, man. Beaches are reopened. I've been skipping and frolicking and ripping lips on the beach again, and I just couldn't be more excited.
That's good, man. I'm excited as well. This is the first time that you and I have ever co-hosted together, and I know that you're pumped up to bring us a good report because you're excited to have the sand between your toes again, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
Well, what's been going on a little bit? You're going to give us the onshore report at the end of the show, so I don't want to ruin it, but things are heating up.
They really are, and there's just been so much going on the beaches. I really can't wait to talk to you guys about all the different things that we've been able to get into over the past week since, well, it's not even been a week since they've been open. I think as of today, I think we've had maybe 4 or 5 days that we could actually fish. But we've had some good. We've had a lot of really good. We've had some bad. We'll go over all of it here. But it's been mostly good, and I'm just excited to be back on the beach. Good
deal, man. I'm excited to have you as a co-host today. Let's head on down to offshore first. I want to get the offshore report. I know Captain Dustin Bedgood over at Fed Up Charters has been having some banner days, so I'm excited to get this offshore report, man. Let's head on down to Orange Beach and see what Captain Dustin's up to. What you say, Captain Dustin? I've been seeing some pretty awesome pictures of some swordfish and some tuna and all kind of offshore fun. What you guys been up to?
Oh yeah, man. We've been getting after them the last few days. We had some real nice weather. We took advantage of it and spent a lot of time offshore. We got to get out there with a few different groups of people, and so we had a good weekend. Got to see some swordfish and some tuna, tilefish, a few groupers. It was a good weekend, though. The bite was pretty good. Yeah. The deep dropping may not be as good after this weekend because it was crazy the amount of people that were out there deep dropping. It was like an armada out there. But people enjoyed it. It was like they'd been cooped up for a while, so they got out, and there's a lot of people on the water. I was a little deeper out, but I could see boats all on the ledge just about all weekend. It seemed like by listening to some of the radio chatter that a bunch of people got, the jack bite was pretty good. I didn't catch any. We didn't really try to, but it sounded like some of the other guys were having pretty good success.
Dustin, I have less than 0% experience offshore fishing the way that you do and the capacity that you do. And it's just amazing to me, the things that you guys accomplish out there. But I got to ask, okay, so deep drop, and I know there's different ways that you can do that. But first off, do you use electric reels for that, or do you manual? Like, how do y'all do that?
If I'm fishing for groupers or tilefish, we use electrics. If somebody requests to use hand crank, we're fine with it. I'll set them up and let them do it all they want. But most people prefer the electrics. Sword fishing, I prefer the hand crank. I catch more fish on it. I lose more on the electric, but we definitely prefer the electrics for the deep dropping for tiles and groupers. It makes it so people can do it for longer. If you hand crank it, you don't, especially for tile fish, that's going to be 1 or 2 drops for most people.
How deep were you catching those tile fish this week?
Oh, the big tile fich, I was catching them in over 1,000 foot of water.
So if you are doing it manual, hand cranking, what would be the technique to reel in a fish from that deep? Like, how do you manage that without tiring yourself out? Like, what's the best way to approach that?
Oh, it's just going to be, you're basically, it's going to be in a rod holder anyway. Even if you hand crank it, you still going to put it in a rod holder, I would think. Some people would put it in a belt, but put it in a rod holder and just put it in low gear and turn the drag up and just winch it up.
Slow and steady.
Yeah, slow and steady and just winch.
And eat your Wheaties, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's really no technique besides just reeling. Once the fish is hooked, just reel it. Keep it steady. Don't stop. You start stopping, you're going to get sharked. And deep drop rigs are expensive, and lead's expensive too. So you always want to keep it consistent. And that's one thing I do like about the electrics when I'm doing that, is I don't have that problem as much. I get the fish up past the sharks before they get it, and I don't lose. I mean, I would rather, sometimes you lose a fish, that's one thing, but I hate to lose a $15 rig and then 3 or 4 pounds of lead.
That sounds expensive.
No doubt.
Oh yeah, every drop.
All right, so you caught some tuna the other day. Tell me a little bit about that. Did you guys catch them on the stumps just south of Dauphin Island, or what were you guys doing?
Yeah, we just went out to the first floaters. It sounded like marlin, ram, patronus, all that area. Beer can had fish on it on I can't remember which day that was. Maybe that was Monday or Sunday, something like that. The water got a little better on Sunday, and we ran out and caught those fish. And I carried live bait. I didn't catch it. I actually bought it from somebody that has a bait boat, and they had a bunch of cigar minnows for me and a few hardtails. But we carried those cigar minnows out and we pulled up. We were the only boat there. So I guess it was maybe a Monday, but we were the only boat there when we first pulled up. It was, nice and calm. I threw out, most of the baits that were dead and the ones that were kind of half alive. I threw them all out, pulled up a little bit up current of the rig. And when I turned around, the tunas were skying on them. We felt pretty confident we were about to catch them. So, I made another loop, got me a bunch of live baits ready, put 2 on a hook, and I'd drive away from them and throw all those other live baits out with them. Sometimes, if I can't get bit, I'll put 20 live baits in a bucket and throw them out without a hook in them and drive away from them. And just to get those tunas eaten, and when they do, they'll eat yours, whether it's got a hook in it or not. And that was what was happening. And, it happened pretty quick. We got a double on, and then, we had some small kids fighting the fish. So we stopped fishing and, kind of let them fight, and, everybody watched them fight the fish, and we landed it, But in a lot of situations, if I'd had a crew of grown men or whatever, or, whole people that can fight the fish, I would have kept feeding those fish and kept hooking them. Because once you feed them and they come up and they go back down, it's kind of harder to get them to keep coming up. And there was also, we had a blue marlin there, and we kept marking him, and the fish, I could tell when he would show up because they would dive deep and go away from him. Yeah,
that sounds amazing. Dustin? What would you like if you were out yourself, not running a trip, and you were able to get on a hot tuna bite? Paint this picture for me. What's your favorite way to catch them? What would you like if you're at home at night and you're dreaming about catching tuna and it's like just the most perfect day? Like, paint that picture. What's your favorite way to catch it?
Live baiting for sure. That's the only way I like to catch them chunking if that's what it takes, but I prefer to live bait. I like to catch several hundred baits. I'm not particular about what kind they are, and then I want to go there, bait those fish up, get them going, and whether I catch a smaller tuna and put him back out for bait, or whether I use my bait to, keep catching them, that's the way I like to do it for sure. I'm not as big on trolling for them and stuff. You can definitely do that and be successful when it's working, but it's just not something that I like to do. If I'm going to troll, it's going to be trolling a live bait. It's fast action when you do it, when you get them up that way, and it's over with real quick. You turn a tuna fishing trip into, hour and a half, 2 hours of fishing, and you go do something else.
Yep.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen quick, or either I'm going to run out of bait quick, so I'm going to have to do something else.
Well, speaking of doing something else, the day before that you guys caught the tuna, did I hear right that you caught 3 swordfish in one day, daytime dropping?
No, we had 2. Saturday we had 2 swords. We had one probably 120 and one, 250, maybe a little north. But when just about always when I come in, nowhere in Orange Beach is open to weigh a fish. And, most days I'm not going to wait till the next day to deal with it. We'll just take a picture and just, take a measurement and go on about our business. But it was a big fish, and we fought it for a long time, all manual, one person, 4 hours, not in the rod holder, in the harness, both fish out of the harness. So that was fun. The fish actually swam shallow on us, and I think the warmer water killed the fish is what made it harder. Finally, towards the end of the fight on the biggest fish, I just had to lock the drag down. The angler did a great job. He was thumbing the reel the whole time, and I just kind of started driving and just we started gaining line, and I was kind of winching the fish, and we kind of planed the fish up. Once we got it up to the surface, it just kind of rolled up, and it was pretty much dead then. They're crazy fish. The day before, I probably lost 4 fish in 2 hours. I got the weight off of 2 of them, had 2 of them jumping beside the boat.
Wow.
I mean, and I know they're about to jump, because I tell people on the boat, the video, I can see the line coming up, and they start videoing, and then the fish jumps out there. And a lot of people don't realize what's going on until one jumps out of the water, and they're like, okay, this is real deal.
This is what I'm fighting.
Yeah, this is what's going on, because, I mean, a lot of times until you get the weight off of them, it can be the fish that we fought for 4 hours, the angler was not convinced that there was a fish there for probably the first 5 to 10 minutes of the fight. It was just like, he was just winching. It wasn't really doing anything. The fish wasn't fighting back. But, when we got him up close, everything changed then. So,
awesome. How deep did you guys drop it?
We were out 1,500 foot of water. There was fish being caught out in 17 to 1,800 too. A lot of boats inside. There's boats fishing from, 1,000 foot to 2,000, which even deeper, but most people are 1,000 to 2,000 foot, and a lot of people. I think there's fish everywhere out, all in that range of water. I think there's fish there. You just need to find the right area with the bait and the thermocline being right, and the moon's been right for the last. It was good for a few days, and the bite was definitely good, and there was a lot of bait. Also, there was tile fish everywhere. We caught tons of tile fish. I was sword fishing and catching tile fish at the same time.
That's awesome.
That was pretty. Yeah, that's cool. You're sitting there watching your sword rod and just go ahead and I caught a couple on my sword bait, and they were big, so I just put a rig down for the tile fish while we were sword drifting. And we caught a couple that way this weekend, so that makes it a little. It takes a little bit out of the sword bite, sure. But the sword fishing was pretty, the action was pretty good. I mean, most of the time we wouldn't have a bait down over, 5 or 10 minutes on Saturday before we would get a bite.
What kind of bait were you guys using?
I use mostly squid. Belly baits are good too. I had several friends fishing this weekend. They had a lot of success. But I think the squid was the best bait. The problem with the squid is when you get hit, if the fish doesn't come back in a few minutes or give you some more action, you might as well go ahead and reel it up if your squid's messed up. The belly bait, I mean, I can catch multiple fish on it. I catch a tile fish and then put it back down and catch a swordfish on it. But you definitely can't do that with a squid. But I think a lot of times the squid is the bait. I cut open the fish I caught this weekend, and most of the time I find that they don't have a whole lot in them, but the big fish was just absolutely full of squid. It had some fish in it, but there was probably 10 pounds of squid in it.
Dang.
They were all pretty small squid, but it was a good weekend. I think, they were definitely eating the squid. That was the same with the tile fish. I think that's why they were biting good this weekend. I think it's something to do with the squid.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. That's cool. We got to get that offshore tip from you. That's a great report. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by CCA Alabama. You guys don't forget to go over to CCAAlabama.org to download the Bonnie Flies art and have your kids color them. You can upload them back up to the website, and that's that coloring contest I was just telling you about, Mathew. All entries must be received by May 7th at 11:59 p.m., and voting ends on May 8th. Another great way to support conservation projects like the Claw Petite Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater Fishing license plate. You guys head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What you think for an offshore tip this week, man?
So my tip this week is, I talked before about the Nomad, the DTX minnows. I've pulled them around a good bit, the last few offshore trips. We would find birds working on the shelf or even shallower up, 500 foot of water. And you see the birds working, you see some bait on top or something. We just started pulling those around, trying to catch wahoo, but we started catching a bunch of blackfin on them. We would, once we would find them, we could make a pass. And if I had 2 out, I would catch 2. If I had 3 out, I would catch 3. They're pretty good sized fish. I'm trolling, 8 knots. You're still covering ground. But that's my tip of the week. It can make the difference. And I also like to use those blackfin that I catch as my deep drop bait.
Nice. That's a great tip. And a nomad, I'm not sure that I know what that is.
I didn't either. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to sound like a complete and total idiot. But
That's okay. I'll do that.
I don't know what a nomad is.
It's just a brand bait. It's kind of like a mirror lure.
So it's one. Does it have the diver thing?
Yeah, it's a diving bait. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a crankbait or a diving bait. A lot of people have always used a stretch 25, stretch 15s, whatever, and those are all good. But the ones I use is a 165 and a 200 DTX, and they have inline hooks. They don't have treble hooks on them, and it's something. Something about the design of them is a lot different than everybody else's bait. It swims deeper and straighter, and you don't have to tune it. You don't have to do anything to it. You just take it out of the box, tie it on, and start pulling it. A stretch bait, you have to tune the bill to get it to swim exactly the way you want, and after it gets hit, you have to retune it a lot of times. The Nomad's something different about it.
So, Dustin, when you were trolling these, were you doing it going from spot to spot, or were you actually designating time to do that?
I was kind of designating time to do that because I would put them out when I seen something and spend a little bit of time. And if I started getting bit, I would continue to do it because I know if I have those blackfins or bonitas or something like that, or if I can catch a wahoo doing the same thing, they're there too. Mm-hmm. But if I catch those blackfin, I really like to use that as my deep dropping bait over squid. Most people use squid, but I like to use that red meat. I can put red meat down on top of squid, and the red meat will come back with fish over the squid most times. That's a lot of times why I spend my time doing it.
Awesome, man. We appreciate that tip, and that's a great report, buddy. You guys keep whacking them. I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, man. That's a great offshore report. It's always good to hear from Captain Dustin. Sounds like he's got it going on down there with swordfish. If you guys want to check out more in-depth on that swordfish, we did an awesome in-depth swordfish show. I think it was in March. It was at the boat show we did it. So you guys definitely go back and check out the swordfish special is what it's called. Where you want to head next, Matthew? You want to go see what's going on the inshore?
Heck yeah. Let's go talk to Patric Garmeson.
What you say, Captain Patric?
Man, what's up, guys?
Man, I'm just watching it blow a little bit, but it's nice and sunny at least.
The blowing almost scared me off of my plan A, and we stuck with plan A.
Did it pay off?
Today. It gave us some action. It wasn't fired up as we thought it was going to be. It gave us some nice action. The guys that I had today, they were real interested in getting a wade fishing in. And me and Captain Richard Rutland and another captain I worked with, Kyle Mennernight, the three of us teamed up on this group the last 3 days. Anyway, today we decided to take them on the south side of the island, get out of that wind. But, boy, let me tell you, when you pull up to Billy Goat Hole and the Dolphin Island Ferry is bouncing up and down inside the Billy Goat Hole area, you are definitely second guessing if this is a smart decision or not. By the time we were putting the boats in the water, Miss Joy come rolling out of the pass, and she had quite the list going on back and forth. Anyway, we sucked it up and powered on around the corner and got around the south side, and man, the Gulf was slick calm, so we're able to run down and fish some of the Gulf beaches. And man, we caught some trout, a lot of buck trout down there today, a handful of female trout, nothing really of any size, but man, most of the guys we just had throwing artificial, and they caught all the trout. We had a couple of guys throwing croakers, and they did not catch a trout. So that was unfortunate for the croaker slinger guys. But we did catch some trout, caught a couple of redfish. Was not on, like I said, it wasn't on fire as I would have had hoped, but definitely good. It got our guys sent back to Atlanta on a positive note, catching some trout from the beach, and we finished up catching a few more redfish later on this morning and brought it on in. But man, I tell you, this over the last 3 or 4 days, 5 days or so, man, if the trout's not happening for you, man, the redfish has been an easy fallback plan. That's been paying off for me, paying off really well, just getting the rod bent. And luckily, I've actually had some customers request that we go targeting redfish. So that's been making my job a little bit easier and funner, you know. I mean, I would imagine it'd be similar to the beach bum, having somebody request a pompano trip in late April, you know. That's kind of about the way it feels. Those have been the targeted species for us, and we've been doing it a little bit of just kind of all over. Been in Mississippi Sound on the eastern shore. Really haven't fished much of the western side of the bay or middle part of the bay. just due to wind and the muddy water still hadn't totally flushed out of the bay yet. Anything from popping corks with live shrimp, voodoo shrimp, and then slick lures. Been throwing a egret wedge tail mullet, a little 3.5-inch mullet and a 5-inch eel, wedge tail eel. Those have been really good options for if somebody just doesn't want to go buy live bait and you feel like you're around some trout, just throwing that thing out, chunk it, wind it, kind of been paying off pretty good on catching some trout, and it paid off on some redfish today too.
Whenever you're looking for the redfish, Patric, what are you honing in on right now to locate those fish? Anything in particular?
Man, not really. It's really just kind of going in areas where you would be targeting trout this time of year. And if you're going to be around, just say, for instance, you're in an area where you may have some stumps or piers or rocks or something like that, and you may catch trout out, kind of in those general areas. A lot of times the trout aren't tight to those areas, but all you got to do is just tighten up to the structure a little bit, and there's the redfish. So a lot of times what we're doing is we'll get into an area and kind of fish our way in to the structure. Does that make sense? Like if we're going to be, we may drift, we may set up and let the wind push us in towards the structure and fish our way in, and you may catch trout on the way in, and then you get in tight to the structure, and you also get to bang out a couple of redfish in there too. And that's going for whether you're on marsh, if you're on like a drop off where the trout are tending to run, say in that 2 to 3 feet of water, and then you get up in that 2 to 1.5 feet of water and closer to the marsh, that's where the redfish are hanging out. Man, they're a lot of them are really close together, not necessarily mixed in too much, other than today when we were catching them on the Gulf side. They were throw out and catch a trout and then throw right in the same spot and catch a redfish. That's a little bit different situation there, because you're more fishing. Pretty much everything's relating to the points and the drop offs and the troughs and stuff like that.
So, Patric, I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit here. I know you're catching the redfish. I know you're catching the speckled trout, but I keep up with all your pictures, and I noticed over the last week or so that you've still been catching sheepshead, which I haven't seen a lot of sheepshead being caught by other people. This is like post-spawn, sheepshead, which most of the time people go their different directions at this time. So what are you doing? Like, what's the way to target post-spawn sheepshead that you can still be successful?
Well, the best way to be successful is to be in areas where they live, and and what they're doing is they've pulled off the offshore structure, pushing back inshore, man, just back to the grind, the tight to the structure game. They're going to be closer to your estuaries where you've got some fresh water coming in and out. I mean, actually, as a matter of fact, I talked to a guy today that said he was in a creek down around Orange Beach, Hammock Creek or one of those, and he said that he was way back in there like bass fishing, and they said that there were sheephead back in there working the grass beds and stuff. It's not necessarily something I'm targeting, Matthew. It's a lot of times what happens this time of year, and will really kind of continue all the way until we get to probably October or November, is we're going to find sheephead mixed in with our redfish, because it goes right back to the point of what I was saying, how we're targeting our redfish now is you just get tighter to that grass or tighter to that structure in the same general areas you're catching trout, and there's your redfish. Well, as a bonus, you pick you up another couple of sheephead or something like that, and they're right in there feeding on the little shrimp, little crabs, and that sort of thing. So that's a good question, because a lot of people don't think about sheephead once the sheephead spawns over. Mm-hmm. We certainly add those to the box if we're keeping some fish that day, for sure.
So what I'm getting from this is you're just the freaking man, and you're going to catch every daggone fish that's inshore swimming, right?
Well, I don't know about the man.
He said, well.
But yeah. the man is quite a stretch, but as far as trying to be efficient and try to be thorough at where I'm fishing, yeah, I am that. We do try to be thorough and try to take advantage of all of our situations.
She said whisperer.
That's right, man. No, it's just cool. Like, while I was talking to you, or right before I asked that question, I was I was thinking, I was like, I know I've seen some sheep's head that he's posted. So I went to your Facebook page and I'm scrolling and I'm seeing like redfish and speckled trout and flounder and sheep's head and triple tail. Like you're just catching everything right now. It looks like it's incredible, man. It really is.
It's fun. It's fun, man. Actually, talking about sheephead, we caught a absolute hammer. I mean, for a post spawn fish, we had one that was just over 7 pounds and I think it was like 23, 24 inches in full length. I mean, it's a big, big fish and caught in 1.5 feet of water.
Wow.
I mean, this dude, I don't know how. I mean, this fish was so big his back should have been out of the water where we caught this fish. But a awesome bonus to the day because we caught that one right towards the end of the day, and it was like, man, what a way to end it on such an unexpected fish and such a high quality one at that.
Heck yeah, sealed up the day nice for him. Well, Mathew mentioned triple tail, so that brings us into our Hey Cap question, man. This week's Hey Cap was brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. Mathew, I love getting questions from our readers to ask all the fishing specialists we have on the show each week. There's nothing like going to the expert to shorten the learning curve. Just like the specialists on the fishing report each week, Daycool Heating and Air are home performance specialists. What does that mean? That means they will inspect your property and find leaking air ducts, hoses, clean out ductwork, and find the HVAC problems before they become nightmares. So check out the heating and cooling specialists who bring you the inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing specialists each week. And mention this ad for a free home performance diagnostic. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app and their license number AL07028. All right, man, let's see. Larry Robertson is who brings us the Hey Cap question this week. And he says, hey Cap, what's the best rig? This is a 2-part question. I will start with the first part. Hey Cap, what's the best rig and bait for triple tail?
The best rig and bait. Well,
how would you rig up? If you were just going out as a normal person, I know that you're Superman since Mathew just reiterated that. If you were a normal human being that were going fishing, what would you start with?
Man, the best thing to do and the easiest thing to do is if you're out there, you bought you some live shrimp to go catch you some speckled trout or redfish that morning, and you were popping corking, keep the same setup. Keep the popping cork. Now, what I will say is I do like to use either like a kale hook or a circle hook, something like a 1/0 owner Mutu circle that's a really dependable hook for me. And really you can shorten your leader up a little bit, but really, I mean, a popping cork with a live shrimp is really, really hard to beat as far as tackle setup. Now we can go in there and we can talk about slip corks and how deep and different scenarios to use that. But man, if you're novice at it, and I still kind of feel like I'm a novice at it, but I mean, I feel like the easiest way for us to go and successfully catch them is burn a little bit of gas, try to find one on top, maybe around something floating or crab trap or grass line or something like that. Put that live shrimp under a popping cork, drag that. A lot of times that if you use a bright orange cork, that orange cork often will catch the eye of that triple tail and he'll follow that cork. And it's your job to get that shrimp up there in front of him, because a lot of times he's going to sit there and follow that cork. And sometimes they'll try to follow it all the way to the boat. So ideally chop your leader down to where you only probably have about 18 inches of leader and have that single hook on there, shrimp on there. And if you see a triple tail, you should be able to catch them on that setup.
Nice.
So that's the simplest and easiest way to do it. Now, we can get into more details, but that's my go-to. So what's the second part of the question?
And give us the best way to approach the fish and the cast to the fish to be successful. Whenever you're approaching a buoy and or something, maybe a log or something that's got a triple tail up under it, what are you looking for?
Okay, so this is where the technical side of things really comes into play. But before I get into that, I will say I want to go back and plug Daycool Heating and Air. Man, this thing that they put in is incredible. My house, I know I've mentioned it before,
nice.
that Daycool put in my HVAC unit in my house,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife has figured out how to like freeze me out, or actually she freezes me into the bed. It'll be so cold. So anyway, a good plug for them. But anyway, so going into the details of the setup or the approach, you always want to approach this fish. You want to allow the current and the wind to be at your back, if at all possible, to where you can have the stern of the boat into it, and then you just keep reversing the boat into the wind,
Mm-hmm.
and that way you can have your angler on the bow. Now, if you're a single angler and you have a GPS guided trolling motor, then you could always deploy that and position yourself downwind and then cast upwind or up current and let your bait drift back down to you. The main thing is you need to really take a look at what the fish is doing. You always want to see the fish is going to be nosed up to whatever debris. If there's any type of current or wind, that the fish is going to try to maintain a certain spot on, like, and what I'm thinking and what I'm visioning when I'm describing this would be like a fish on a crab trap.
Mm-hmm.
And those fish can be both the easiest and the most difficult to catch. And the most difficult reason is because that float has a handy dandy rope underneath it that often gets hung, people often get hung up on if they don't make that cork drift beside the rope and allow it to drift by the cork and beside the rope without
Mm-hmm.
getting hung up on it. So paying attention to the way the fish is positioned and you just have to be able to pass that bait in front of the fish. They're typically going to be laying on their side. So their field of vision they have a pretty wide field of vision, but the best thing to do is to try to drag that thing from the top of his head towards his mouth, because he can see the bait coming by him. That's going to be the best way to try to present that bait. But the main thing is being able to put yourself where either the back of the boat into the wind, into the current, to where you can hold yourself back and have your angler actually drift the bait to the fish, or if you're doing it by yourself and you're going to get below it, then throwing it past the fish and dragging it back to you. Those are two of the best ways to do it. Try not to do it across the current or across the wind, because you're just going to end up entangling in the crab trap more likely. And then what's going to happen, somebody's going to get, a little pissed off because somebody else is missing the fish, and then they're going to fire a cast right at the cork and knock the fish right in the head, and he's going to be gone.
Yeah, that's how you get a mutiny on your hands.
Right. And then the other thing is, the fish on debris, like if you've got something that's out there floating, a lot of times those fish are more meandering around. So those can be a little bit more tricky because they're not staying in one particular place. So that fish may require several casts, but always trying to laying your cast well away from the fish and try to drag it in the direction that he's going. A lot of times they're just going to swim. They'll swim past, say a log, for instance. They'll just kind of swim the whole length of the log, go past the end of the log, turn around and come back down the log. And if you kind of get, they'll get kind of into a habit of how they're positioning on that floating debris. And just watch your behavior. Don't get overly excited, because a lot of times those, despite you being right there in your boat, they're really not too weary of it. Probably the last thing is just be patient, pay attention to what the fish is doing before you even make a cast. I would imagine any of those tips are going to help more people put more triple tail in their boat. Hopefully you can get out there and use those tips and get them a triple tail this year.
Heck yeah. Yep. Larry's going to get.
Or just hire you to take you out and do it.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Or we could always do that and learn firsthand.
For sure, man.
But I will say this, I don't know if I said it earlier, our very first triple tail this year, we caught it on a slick lure. So that kind of throws everything else out. But this fish, we didn't even see it. We were just in an area with a lot of structure. We were just throwing slicks to try to catch a trout or a redfish, and very first bite was a triple tail. So anyway, so slick lures work for triple tail as well.
Well, that's perfect, because Larry Robertson's going to get a prize pack from the slick lure. Larry,
Well,
make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your slick lures. You guys make sure and get your Hey Cap questions in at alabama@bestfishingreport.com or over on the Facebook page, and we'll get you in the running for those slick lures. What else you got, Patrick?
good. Man, I'll tell you what, I've got a good tip as well, and that is check out the Northwest Florida Fishing Report.
Yeah.
Because I've been checking out Joe's report over there. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if there's guys who just have like all kind of pinned up, just got to talk and talk fishing. But those dudes are giving away some really, really good information, and quite a bit of it is applicable over here, despite them being a lot of different fishing conditions, like in the inshore world.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I'd certainly encourage our listeners to be checking out that Northwest Florida Fishing Report as well, because they're going to learn as much over there as they are on our podcast for sure.
Heck yeah. Any information is good information. Joe and Blake do a good job over there for sure. Appreciate that plug. Well,
Yes,
man,
sir.
if people want to, you got any open dates? What's the best way to get a hold of you? People want to book a charter with you. I'm sure you're getting pretty booked up.
Yeah, I've got, I think I'm down to 6 open dates the rest of this month. And I think I've got maybe 10 or 12 days still open in June. Man, I'd love to speak with anybody. It's just a lot of times I've got guys that'll reach out to me and they have a specific thing that they're wanting to do. And we try to pick a date on the calendar when it makes sense that we should be able to accomplish that goal or whatever. So, I mean, a lot of times, I mean, you can go on my website at uglyfishing.com and click book now, or just go straight to fishingchaos.com and go to the charter section, find me in there. But that's my live calendar, and anybody that just goes on there, you can go on there, you can find what open dates I have. If something works for you, you can book it without even talking to me. But if you've got some questions, you've got something that you really want to try to address, then shoot me a text or give me a call, and we'll talk it out and find out what's right for you. And then also still doing my text message group. So if you're interested in receiving a text message, I'm doing pretty much one text a week. So you can text me at 251-747-1554, and I can add you to my list. And that's also a way to get in touch with me. So text me at that number or call me at that number. And any of those ways, I will certainly try to help you out, get you on the boat, get you on some fish.
Awesome, man. We appreciate the report, Patrick. That's a great Hey Cap question. As always, man, enjoyed having you on. Hope to talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
All right, man. That's a great inshore report from Captain Patric Garmeson. Always good to hear from that guy. He's always smashing something somewhere.
Oh yeah, love Patrick, man. He knows the stuff, man. Just smart dude.
Does. Yep, for sure. All right, man. That's going to lead us into finally, for the first time in a while, the onshore report, the actual sand between your toes report, man. Give it to us. What you been up to?
I can't even put into words the excitement. Like, to have something that you love so much taken away from you for an extended period of time, an unknown period of time.
Right.
It only ended up lasting a month and a half, but man, it felt like
That's
forever.
a long time, though.
It is. It couldn't have happened at like a worse time for the surf fishermen. I mean,
right.
you shut down the month of April.
That's what you live for.
That's Christmas, man.
Yeah.
Like we circle April every year on the calendar, and the entire month gone.
Yep.
It was
Pompano
tough.
month.
It was tough, but
Well,
we're
what's it
back.
been like, man?
We're back.
Give us some good news.
Yeah, it was. Let's see. Beaches opened up on Thursday evening, 5:00.
Yep.
And from that point forward, the amount of pompano that were caught, I was just in shock. Like, I was able to get out there a couple times. And I don't even know, honestly, if you had to have bait in the water. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Like, it was a sleigh fest for everybody. Everybody was just hammering pompano, which was just crazy. I'm going to assume that part of it, because I've just never seen a weekend like we just had.
Well, they had a month and a half off.
It had to play a role. It had to. I mean, they were just everywhere. Even though we missed April, May is usually a good month for pompano, and we did have a good weekend at the beginning of this week. And also, but not only that, I mean, there was just so much life happening right now on the surf. Like, in conjunction with the pompano, we're catching Spanish. We're catching a lot of Spanish right now, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And even the trout, one of the things I talk about on the show and on my channel that I love about the Alabama Gulf Coast is just the amazing opportunity that we have to catch some really high quality speckled trout out of the surf. I mean,
you caught a nice one on Topwater the day after the beach opened, right? That next morning.
Day one.
Pretty one.
That was my first fish back on the beach was a nice trout, like right under 20 inches, and that's a small one for the surf, the surf, like you're not catching, you don't catch dinkers in the surf, man. All the trout you catch in the surf are studs, and they're almost like a different animal, like
they are. They look
together.
Different. I agree.
Yeah, they
fight different.
They're thicker. They're more aggressive. They're just and I hadn't caught one out of the surf, since last, like the end of last summer, when that season kind of ends.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hooked into the thing, I thought it was a bluefish, because how aggressive bluefish are. I was like, oh, this has got to be a bluefish. I mean, it was just losing its mind. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a trout.
Awesome.
So it's just great to be back. I'm so excited. We've got pompano are doing well. Spanish are doing exceptional. Trout are starting to trickle in there. Let's see, what else did we catch? We were still catching black drum, some big uglies. We actually caught the biggest one on a trip this past weekend for me. We caught a 42-inch black drum. We didn't weigh the thing, but I mean, it had to be
42 inches. That's like,
wow,
that's huge.
Massive. I mean, freaking huge. And I mean, had to be pushing close to 40 pounds. I mean, just
good Lord.
Big fish. Just unbelievable. So there's just a lot going on. And ladyfish have shown back up. We just started seeing them in the last few days. So they probably trickled in here some point during April.
Right.
But that's always a sign, like, not that we necessarily, it's not like one of our targets, but it clues you into what's going on and what season that we're in when you start seeing these ladyfish come in here. Just all these other species, you start getting geared up for that summer pattern when we just have all these species in the surf, and that brings in the sharks and it brings in the stingray. There's so much life happening. The mullet, the mullet are there, the mullet are running. You can see schools of Jack Crevalle. It's just something really special about beach fishing. When you can get out there before sunrise and you can watch the sun come up and you see just the life that takes place in the Gulf right next to the beach. I mean, you're going to see just so many. You're going to see Spanish working. You're going to see ladyfish jumping. You might see a school of jacks just freaking lose their minds. You're going to see mullet jumping. It's just a really special time. Like, it's really cool this time of year to just see that life take place. And it's been so evident, I think, because it's been left alone for the last month and a half too.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk bait a little bit. You guys still catching the pompano on the jigs? You've been doing any set rigs? You've been doing both?
But a little bit of both for me. Jig fishing for pompano is something that the last couple of years I've really spent a lot of time trying to get better at. And it is more difficult to do it from land. Whether it's a little more successful when you're doing it from the pier or from a boat. When you like a boat, you can get to some areas where those fish are held up, or from the pier. A lot of times you get opportunities because you can see the
sight, right?
Yeah, which really makes a big difference. So it's a little difficult from the beach, but it's something that I've spent some time trying to do. And I did have some success one day and was able to get a couple, which jig fishing for pompano from the beach, that's a successful day. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's tough to blind cast for those pompano because you kind of have to just hope for those schools to be coming through when you're throwing it. So yeah, they're hitting the jigs. If you can be fortunate enough to have your timing right, where you're throwing that jig at the time the school's coming by, you can pick them up on the jig. They're going to eat it. But their bait for set rigs, I've been surprised actually, because I've been fishing with ghost shrimp and shrimp and Fishbites primarily. Ghost shrimp is like the most natural bait for these fish. Like it's what they're looking for on the Alabama Gulf Coast in particular. More so even than a lot of the areas along the Florida Gulf Coast where I fished. Very specific to the Alabama Gulf Coast, we have a lot of ghost shrimp. I don't know of any, maybe Texas. Like, I've heard stories of the Texas coast having a lot of ghost shrimp as well. But for whatever reason, I don't know what it has to do with it, but we just have a lot of ghost shrimp in our surf zone. And that is just for whatever reason for our coast, it's like the best bait. It's just the most natural. It's what these fish eat. And I've been putting that out there along with the Fishbites and regular shrimp that you buy from the bait store. And Fishbites, sand flea flavor, has won hands down throughout this whole past weekend. Like, it has been totally outperforming all of the naturals, which I'm a big believer in fish bites. I always have been. I mean, it's always just a great bait to have in your arsenal. Certainly. But I mean, even fish bites will tell you themselves, like, oh, it's not live bait. I mean, like any artificial lure company is going to tell you, well, it's not live bait. It's live bait's what these fish are going to eat. But for whatever reason, they've just wanted it more.
Water clarity? Maybe those colors?
I don't know. I can't put. I mean, it's rare that it outperforms.
That's interesting.
It's rare, but it's
next to the super secret ghost shrimp.
I know you're right. The super not so secret ghost shrimp that we blast on the airways now. But
well, that's cool.
But it's been good. In Spanish, I haven't personally caught any of the Spanish on any set rigs, but I know people were just from reports and from pictures. I caught them on the jig. I've caught them on diamond jigs this past weekend, which, anything shiny that you
sling in real fast.
That's all you got to do.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're going to catch them. Yeah. And then I've caught them on the pompano jig while I've been jigging for the pompano as well, which is really fun. As long as you can not get cut off, it's really fun to be able to catch Spanish and pompano on the same lure and have a successful day walking the beach.
Yeah, that's cool. I've been seeing some people arguing about Spanish on the interwebs not being good to eat. Man, Spanish is delicious.
Here's the thing on Spanish. And the very first time I ever ate Spanish, I remember it. I hated it. And I know what I did wrong. Two things. The very first time I kept a Spanish, this was 4 or 5 years ago now, I didn't bleed it. Mistake number one. Mistake number two, I put it in the refrigerator, and I didn't put it on ice or anything in the refrigerator, but I put it in the fridge, and I let it sit there for, I think, about 4 days. And most other fish, that's going to be okay. Like you can put it in the fridge and let it sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and it's probably going to still taste fine. But for whatever reason, that does just not work well with Spanish. Like Spanish gets fishier, something happens with that meat, and it's just not going to taste good. You really, if you're going to eat Spanish, not smoked, if you're going to eat it like baked or fried or grilled or like you would any other kind of fish, it really needs to be bled, and it really needs to be eaten like the day of or the next day. Yeah. And when you do that, it's a delicious piece of fish. I've learned from my mistake, and I will keep Spanish now. My wife and I enjoy eating them when it's done right.
Right. Bleed them. What do you do? Cut the gills out?
Yeah, they're real easy. I just take my finger and I just pop their gills on each side, and blood goes everywhere. So, you might want to make sure you've got it in a position where you're like, maybe already in the cooler because that blood, it goes everywhere. It's really messy, but you definitely want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Like on the boat, we do the same thing. Just stick it in like a half of a filled 5-gallon bucket after you pull out the gills and stick them in there, and they'll bleed out in there. But yeah, it might not be able to carry all that on the beach with you.
Right.
All right, Matthew, I'm going to back you up a little bit. Let's talk about speckled trout a little more. You got me excited with that one you caught. Well, first of all, what kind of topwater did you catch that one on? Yeah,
what I've had the most success on in the past is the head-in topwater, what do they call it? The one knocker spook, the head-in one knocker spook. And it's just a particular sound that lure makes. And for whatever reason, I've just personally had the most success. And I've tried the mirror lures, I've tried the she dogs, and I've tried the spook juniors. Like I have experimented with a lot of these different topwaters, and that cadence, that noise, whatever, I tend to have the most success. So that's kind of what I stick with most of the time. And that's what I caught my first one on the other day, but they're trickling in there. And one of the things that I of course get really excited about pompano. I mean, who wouldn't as a surf fisherman? But sometimes maybe even more than that, I get more excited about these surf trout just because it's just so fun and they're so cool. And what you'll notice with these trout, they're starting to trickle in, but you won't really you don't catch a whole lot of them in schools. You can in the surf. It's happened. I've stumbled across it where they're stacked, and it happens. But most of the time when you see these trout, it's ones and twos. Like they're cruising really close to the beach, and they're big. They're over 20 inches, and it's like one trout by itself, or maybe two trout together. And they're usually held up in these rips, and that's really the areas that you're going to want to focus on. And this is the time of the year that they're just kind of starting to make their way into the surf. So really excited to see those fish coming in. You can use lures, or you can use live baits. I've used some shrimp in the past, and if you get the right conditions, you can approach it. If you want to use some live bait, you can use a popping cork with a shrimp on there, just basic, basic way to approach them. But it's hard sometimes getting that live bait to the beach. It is heavier.
Sure.
Carrying a 5-gallon bucket full of water and shrimp or whatever you got for that. And just got to have the right conditions for that too, because you got to have that flat north wind. If you have any kind of swell or anything, it's going to push that popping cork back to you or your bait. So you can go about it both ways. My favorite way, of course, is to throw artificials, whether it be a top water or like a mirror lure or even spoons. I've had a lot of success with like silver spoons for those trout. So any of those will get them.
I was throwing slicks in the surf not too long ago with Captain Richard. We were smashing them, man.
Were you? Yeah.
They love that cold night, that cool beans color with the chartreuse tail.
Yeah, I need to give it a shot. Haven't really experimented much in the surf with soft plastics. Like I've just always kind of gravitated towards the hard baits in the surf. If you get a real like low wind day, I'm sure it's really easy to use them. But it's usually so windy out there. You got some kind of current or waves and stuff. It's harder to work those.
Certainly.
Those baits that are going to move a little bit slower. So I've just not experimented with it a whole lot.
For sure. Whenever you do. Whenever you are looking for these trout in the surf, we talk about bars and cuts a lot with pompano and things like that. What are you looking for whenever you're looking for these gators in the surf?
Yeah, what I briefly mentioned was talked about looking for those rips in the surf. And what you're going to see is like you're going to see the break in the bar. And the areas that these fish are holding up, those bars are usually really close to the beach. I mean, anywhere from like 10 to 20 yards off of the beach. So not far at all. And you'll see just this gap in the bar where there's this rip. And that's really what you want to look for. One thing that I point out to people every time I'm on a trip, I'll try to paint this picture. If you're having a difficult time looking at the water and seeing these things and seeing the rips and the holes and cuts and everything, a trick that you can do that's a little easier is if you stand and look down the beach, if you face east or west, whatever, and you just look down the beach and you look at the sand, not the water, but you're looking at the beach that meets the water, you'll see all these points, of sand that run out.
Yep.
Generally, the rips, you're going to find them in the areas where you've got 2 points in the beach and like a carve out. So you've got like this, you got like this bow almost between these 2 points. So if you're looking, you see that contour of the beach, you see 2 points in the bow. In between those 2 points, that's where those rips are generally going to be. So if you're having a hard time seeing it in the water, focus on those areas. Go and stand in the middle of that bow, in between the 2 points. Go stand in the middle of it and fan cast and try to locate where maybe those trout are hanging. And then walk to the next one, get in the middle of that one, fan cast again. That's probably the easiest way if you're having a hard time reading the beach to figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did hear you say rips, but offshore we call a rip something totally different. So I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
Yeah, all the interlocking lingo and
I know
how it gets confusing. It's hard.
That's right. You heard any more ling? You heard any ling talk from the surf yet?
No, you and Richard calling these Kobe a ling. It takes me. I'm like, oh, Kobe. I'm like, what?
That's right.
That's the proper term, right?
Yeah, that's right. For South Alabama, anyway.
That's right. That's right. No, I haven't. And I haven't been on the pier much.
True.
I think there were a couple caught from the pier, but I haven't seen any or heard any. And typically, that's not. I don't know if they try to keep that under wraps or not, but I don't know. That might be a difficult one for them to keep a secret. But
that's right.
But I haven't heard much. Haven't had a chance for that yet.
Maybe you can get you another one off the beach this year. I enjoyed that story last year.
That would be. I don't know if it'll ever happen, man. I mean, that was so cool. I hope I can do that. I want to catch one. I want to do it myself from the beach. That was a client.
Yeah, for sure. We need to get you one. All right, man. We got to get that onshore tip from you. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of scrambling for bait whenever you decide to go fishing? Have an artificial bait that's better than live bait ready to go at a moment's notice with Fishbites. It's easy to pack and travel with, and it's shelf stable, and not to mention tough. With Fishbites, the bait stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of scented, saltwater, and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. What you think for a tip this week, man?
Something that has already bit me in the butt and I need to listen to my own advice sometimes, getting back on the beach. And I think I'm going to make an excuse here. And I think partially
No excuses.
it's because I was just so dadgum excited to be back on the beach. And it was just really, I was like a kid in the candy store, you know, I just, look at this. Oh, this over here, you know, so I couldn't really focus. And
Fishing ADD.
Exactly. and saltwater fishing, I'm sure can be this way any capacity, but especially right now from the surf, just because there is so much going on, it can be hard to focus, and you can miss opportunities if you aren't focused. And what I mean is, like, you know, there's Spanish, there's pompano, there's trout. You've got all these different opportunities that are really good, and if you don't kind of just say, okay, I really just need to focus for a period of time on this one species, you're going to miss opportunities, and you might not have as a successful day as you could have if you just honed in on, okay, I'm going to focus on pompano today and have a successful day with pompano, or I'm going to focus on trout today and have a successful day for trout. I'm all about being prepared. You know, if an opportunity presents itself, if you're doing something else and audibling, absolutely. You know, these opportunities are there. But I think going in with a better game plan of, okay, this is really my focus for the day, I think you'll have better success if you really plan for that and then just have other things ready to go in case it comes about. But I kind of got out there and just, I'm like, I'm going to catch it all, you know.
Right.
I'm going to get the Spanish, I'm going to get the power,
running around everywhere.
And it just kind of makes you semi-successful in all areas, and which ends up just not being very successful completely. But it is fun. It's cool to at least have those opportunities and be able to have options right now.
Yep. I love it, man. That's a great tip. And yes, it is that way in a lot of different fishing. Sometimes you have to rein yourself in whenever you start seeing everything and other different opportunities. But that's a great tip, man. I appreciate that. All right, man. That's another good Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. But you know, we got to do What Did You Learn? And today's What Did You Learn is brought to us by Advanced Transmission. Sometimes in life, the cheapest option today isn't always the cheapest option in the long run. It's no different with transmissions. At Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort, Alabama, they don't just replace transmission components. They upgrade your components to extend the life of your transmission, which saves you time and money over the life of your vehicle. Marvin and Laura Wilson have been providing honest, quality work for the last 26 years. If money is tight, they have financing available. Give them a call at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. Be sure to tell them you heard this ad for a 10% discount. All right, Matthew. I know it's been a while since you've co-hosted with me, but you know we got to get What Did You Learn? And what did you learn today, man? A lot of good info. Good tidbits and pearls of wisdom there. Fishing's firing up, and it's also heating up. It's getting hot.
It is. Yeah, man. And always on this show, I mean, it's just always slam-packed of just so much good information. But one little, like, nugget of information that just kind of stuck out to me, because it's something that I've learned here really recently, that you just really got to pay so close attention to this. And Patric, when he was going over his rig for triple tail, he got very specific on the hook that he used. I can't remember. It was the owner, Mutu Light. I can't remember what size or style. Maybe a kale hook. I can't remember exactly. You need to pay attention to that if you want to rig for triple tail, what he said. But it's so important. Whatever species of fish that you're going to target, there are certain hooks that work well to hook that fish and keep that fish hooked, and there are hooks that just don't. And you really need to pay close attention to those things. I mean, you know, like if you try to go for triple tail and you've just got whatever hooks you've got and you didn't pay attention to what Patric just told you for the hook that he uses, you may have a hard time hooking and keeping that fish hooked if you try to go a different direction from that. So just that little bit of information and him giving that out as far as, hey, this is exactly the hook that I use. If you've never gone triple tail fishing, don't just think you can get by with any hook. Use that one, you know, because it works evidently.
Well,
you know,
and the thing about that is how many fish has he missed without that hook to figure out that that's the hook that you need.
Exactly. You know, and I've gone through this. Like, I mean, it's so real for me. If I know something works and I tell you, and it's something you've never done, same thing. You know, any of these guys, if they're telling you like a specific hook, that small little detail, you can't just stick on any hook. You need to get the right size, the right style, brand, whatever they're using, just use it if you don't know, because I promise you it's going to save you a lot of trouble.
Took them years to figure that out.
Exactly. It's a small detail, but it is so, so important.
Yep. I like that one, man. That's a good one.
Well, Butch, man, what did you pick up today? What'd you learn?
Well, I know we're patting Patric's back awful hard. Don't let his head get too big. Mine was Patric too, man, how he said to, if you're fishing stumps, pylons, piers, start out a little further and work your way in, because he said he was catching those trout, off of the structure, working his way in, and then finding that the redfish and the sheepshead even were holding tight to those structures. So I think that's a pretty good pearl right there. I would just run up and start fishing the pylons.
Those little things are always so good, and it's something that you got to pay attention to in any type of structure that you're fishing. It sounds so basic, but we forget. Like, I think we just get out there and we start fishing, we get excited, but just being strategic in making sure that you cover water and you're covering the right water in a uniform fashion, that you're not missing any opportunity. People do it on the beach all the time. They go out there and they just start casting, right. Like, I'm just going to catch these fish, but you got to really plan and think and approach it in a way that makes sense. And it's not hard. It's usually not like that's a thing like, oh, I should have thought about that, to cover that much water in that way. But it's something that is just very easy to slip your mind if you don't have a plan in place and approach it in the right way. Yep.
Agreed, man. I thought that was pretty cool. Like you say, you're just optimizing your chances whenever you do get to go. I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you co-hosting me this week, man. I enjoyed it.
It's so good to be on the show co-hosting. It's what better time to bring on the onshore dude, one of the onshore dudes to co-host when beaches reopen. We're so excited. It's just a great time, and hopefully we can get past all this mess, the C word, in its entirety here soon. But at least we've got this little nugget back to us.
That's right. So you guys keep whacking them, and make sure that you go to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. We'll talk to y'all next week. You guys keep whacking them.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also brought to you by Bama Fishing Rodeo. The funnest fishing tournament on the Gulf Coast is June 12th through the 14th. Go to fishfloribama.com for tickets and more details. Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at fortifiedroofingpros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. Also brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea temps, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at hiltonsoffshore.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.
Also brought to you by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home is experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com.